Courtney. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm doing something a little bit different today. I am going to be doing, starting a wedding series. I need to ask you guys on Instagram and Twitter, let me say a couple more times, if you'd be interested in hearing more about our wedding process and tips and tricks and things that I have learned from being in the industry. And a lot of people responded with like a hell yeah. So we're going to do that. I'm going to start today. So this first video is going to be, as you saw in the title, it's going to be important questions to ask your wedding venue. And these are for both indoor, outdoor. I have like thoughts on some of them, and we're going to go. So just in case you guys didn't know, I used to be a wedding planner, so I have a little bit of inside knowledge, and I'm going to share that with you. So let's just jump in. So the first thing and the most important thing is, if you have a date already picked out, you want to start by asking if they have your date available. And for me specifically, we didn't pick a date until we had like a venue we liked, and then we asked what they had, and we just went from there. But you can do it either way. There's no really wrong way to plan a wedding. Despite what people will tell you, you can do whatever you want because it is all about you. So if you have a date picked, you want to make sure that they have the date open before you go visit or do a tour, because if you fall in love with the place and they don't have your date, you're going to be upset. If you're open to, like, if it's a Friday date that you want but they have the Saturday open, like if you're open to moving or like doing it the weekend after, the weekend before, then for sure, like if you have a preferred date, definitely go talk to them about it. But if you're flexible, which I suggest being flexible, because you'll cut off a lot of venues or vendors if you're not like a little bit flexible. Moving on, you need to make sure you ask about a minimum requirement. So this is for number of guests, for food and beverage cost, for anything like that. Normally this is stated in the contract that you have to have, like, 150 people to have a Saturday, or 180 or whatever it is. You can also ask your primary contact or your event planner at the venue, and they will be able to tell you. You also want to know your max capacity for your area, and that's for people seated, like sitting down at the dinner table. I also want to stress that if you want a dance floor, you want to make sure that people aren't going to be seated on the dance floor. So that's important as well, to like find a venue that fits your guests. One of the super important things is to ask about if you have exclusive use of the venue space. So you want to check if you're the only wedding of the day, or if they're going to have like a grad party in the morning, your wedding at night, for decoration reasons, for setup for your vendor reasons, just for your general well-being and peace of mind. It is nicer to be the only person there. I'm not saying it can't work if there's two events, but it's a little bit trickier, and you definitely have to have logistics on your mind when you're planning florals and DJs and drop-offs and pickups and that kind of stuff. The next thing you want to ask is if there's a set schedule for your event, and then how flexible it is. So a lot of venues will, if you're having the ceremony there, they'll start you at 5 or at 4, depending on the area, depending on the busyness, and all that good stuff. So you want to ask and check. I know most people are fine with like a 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock wedding, but sometimes like on a Sunday or on a Saturday, brides want to do it earlier, later, etc. Or like on a Friday night, if you want to do it at 6 instead of 5 so that more people can come. You just have to have open communication. That's a super big thing. The next question is about the venue being weatherproof and if there's a backup plan. So this is really important if you have an outdoor reception or an outdoor ceremony. Do they provide tents? Do they bring you inside? Do they help move everything? That kind of stuff. And then the next question is it required to use their preferred vendors? So a lot of places have been burned by bad vendors, and they only let you use their specific vendors. So you want to ask before you bring people in, naturally. And then if you can use anybody, still get their list of preferred vendors, because those people know where everything goes. They've been there a million times. They have good relations with the event coordinator and the grounds crew, if it's a golf course, that kind of stuff, so they know like where you can go for pictures and all that good stuff. You want to double check about any limitations for decorating, which usually this is stated somewhere, like you can't put nails in the wall, you can't use fake flower petals on the grass, things like that. But definitely still ask for inside and outside. Super important. Um, and then you need to make sure when they tell you that to make a note of it and then listen to them. Like if they tell you you can't have sparklers, don't just buy a bunch of sparklers and assume they're not going to say no to you on the day of your wedding, because they will say no to you on the day of your wedding and then you're going to be pissed off. So just be respectful is like the biggest thing. What the pricing includes and excludes is super important as well. You definitely want to take notes on this. Pay attention, read the contract very well, or have someone read it for you. A parent, a guardian, a more adult. You want to make sure you know your time frame. If you have any noise restrictions, if you have to be out at a certain time, if you can't come in till a certain time, all that stuff is really important, especially if you are not going to be doing the setup. If you're having like a cousin do it or your friend while you're getting your hair done, you just want to know all the information before you sign anything. I always make sure to tell, or you should definitely ask if there's any other policies they have that you should know about. So like, for example, if you're on a golf course and you can't take pictures in your high heels on like any of the putting greens, that's something you need to know. Or if you can't go past like the 5th hole to take pictures, they want you close to the venue, something like that. That's something that you need to ask in advance and make sure your photographer knows about. So stuff like that, just stuff that comes up last minute. Information about a payment schedule, their cancellation policy, that's usually all written out in the contract too, but it's good to hear it verbally. Always check if there's a rehearsal time already built in, and if you're being billed extra for it. Most places include it, but still it's good to know. For catering, you want to know if it's included. So for inside, if you're doing a venue and it's indoors, normally they do include their own, but it's good to ask. For outdoor venues, you definitely want to know, and you want to know who they recommend, because they've been there before, they know where everything is, they know how to deal with being outside, like if you're at a beach or like wherever, if you're at a venue outside, they know how it goes already. You want to ask about food tastings. If you can do this before you sign a contract, that's what I recommend. But if you can't, you want to ask about how much it costs, what you get to try, all that good stuff. Do they partner with any hotels? Do you get a discount anywhere? Don't be afraid to ask for discounts, because a lot of places will do them if you ask. But there's a lot of places that partner with venues, hotels, shuttle services, that kind of stuff. So ask. Make sure to ask. Always ask. Asking about a spot to change into your dress, like for pictures, like at the ceremony spot, is definitely what I recommend. Trying to drive in a big puffy dress is not easy. If there's any accessibility problems for any disabled guests, if they will like drive them around in a golf cart, if they have elevators, why am I trying to say slide, like ramps, the word is ramps, anything like that. Very important, especially if you have any older guests, or just in general, in case someone breaks their leg, like a groomsman. You don't want that to keep him from coming to the wedding. You always want to do a bathroom check when you do a tour. I always suggest doing this because some places are super, super nice and their bathrooms are super, super gross. And people will remember that even if you don't think they will. Because in my experience, drunk people spend a lot of time in the bathroom. So it's always good to check. You want to ask about their tipping policy, if it's included, if if there's going to be a tip jar out, anything like that. You can also pre-tip at a lot of places, so they won't have a tip jar out. It's totally up to you. You want to ask if there's an on-site wedding coordinator that's going to like get your ceremony going. If not, this is a super good job for Aunt Betty, who is fully functional and will not be drinking before the ceremony. And make sure that person comes to the rehearsal so they know what's going on if you have like a friend or a family member do it. You want to ask about package flexibility. or if you can build your own, if you don't like what they offer. A lot of places you can like add an hour, subtract an hour, add a wine, take a wine away, change a beer, whatever. A lot of places are really flexible about it, but you need to ask and be very straightforward. Like, this is what I want. How much is it going to cost? Can you do it or not? You want to ask, I kind of said earlier for decor, you want to know if you can throw confetti, bubbles, fog machines, anything you can think of that's like, oh, I've seen that done before. Ask. A lot of places, anything biodegradable is fine. Most places don't let you do fog or bubbles inside because it wrecks the paint, but it doesn't mean they wouldn't let you if you ask and you would like a certain thing. You want to know when vendors can come in and set up. You want to know when you can come in and set up if you're decorating yourself. You want to know which should be written in the contract or written in a package somewhere if your ceremony is included, if you're doing an on-site one. Even for outdoor receptions, if you're doing the ceremony there, ask if it's a separate charge, because sometimes it is, and it's sometimes in the fine print and you don't want to get slapped with that extra $600 without planning for it. This one's kind of just in general, but you want to know if the venue has liability insurance or if you need to get some. For outdoor venues and ceremonies, this is really important because most inside venues that are like a building have insurance, liability insurance, but sometimes it's also a good idea to get event insurance in case a tornado hits. I don't know, like if you're worried, if you're anxious about it, get event insurance, and then you don't have to worry about it. If anything happens, you'll be covered. You want to know if there's security services offered. You may or may not want this. They might already have it. Sometimes for outdoor weddings, it's nice, like if you're not in a space, to keep people from coming in, or if you think your family's going to get really rowdy and you're going to need to kick some people out, this is a good option. You want to know what cleanup you have to do. So usually for venues, if you bring something in, they want you to take it out, and if not, they'll toss it or recycle it or whatever for you. But a lot of times you have to be out by a certain time, but you don't have to do a ton of the breakdown. But it's always good to ask because there are places where you have to set up and tear down chairs, tables, etc. Good to know. You want to ask if you can bring your own alcohol. If there's a corkage fee, most venues don't let you do that because of this, well, in Michigan, because the Michigan law is that you can't bring outside alcohol into a licensed place. But if you're having an outdoor wedding, if you're having it like in a park or anything like that, you want to check if you can bring it. You want to know if your bartenders, if they have bartenders, if they're licensed, if they have insurance, etc. And you want to kind of worry about crowd control a little bit, like think about what you're going to buy. You want to ask if you can bring your own dessert. You want to know if there's a cake cutting fee, because some places do that. Some bakeries will already include that in their fee, so you don't even know about it. When they bring the cake and cut it, it's already done. For floor plans, this is super important. You want to ask them to send you a floor plan for your guest number, your like estimated count, so you can see what it'll look like you can visualize it a little bit easier. That's really important because then you can see, and obviously I'm not saying like plan your seating chart at like 2 months into planning, but it's nice to be able to see like how everything's probably going to look on the day of, and then you can adjust it as you go. Also, the last thing is if your ceremony is in a spot that's kind of hard to find, like if it's in a really far, you have to take a really long road to get there, or if it's kind of like in the middle of nowhere, you want to have signs out for guests. You can ask if the venue has signs that you can put out, or Staples print signs super cheap. Stick some balloons on there, get people's attention, and they won't miss your wedding. So if you guys have any other questions, or if you have any video ideas or thoughts for this series, let me know down below. I'm going to have all these questions like written out in the description box. You can copy and paste them to a Word doc if you want to take them to your venue when you go. If you guys have any questions, definitely don't be afraid. Write them down below. I can answer them to the best of my ability. I do only have Michigan knowledge, but I don't think a lot of stuff varies too much from state to state, but I do have a lot of contacts throughout the U.S. So I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions, like I said, or inspiration for another video, write it down below, and I will do my best to get to it. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and happy planning. Bye, everyone.